Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Finn McDermott and here are your top stories on Tuesday, the 4th of November. Tax rises rage. Medway business owners react to Chancellor's unprecedented pre-budget speech.
The new government has made a complete mess of the whole thing. So it's been a pack of lies from start to finish.
Green light for green fuel. Permission granted for £50 million Hoo Peninsula refinery.
The expansion of our biotech teams, the ability to enhance our research and development, it's all part of being able to deliver big volumes to local projects like the Lower Thames Crossing.
And a prehistoric success. Meet the Jurassic waste collector making fossil fuels extinct in Maidstone.
We hope they go to where the dinosaurs are.
First tonight, Kent households and businesses could face tax hikes after Rachel Reeves delivered a pre-budget speech in Downing Street. The Chancellor refused to rule out a U-turn on Labour's general election pledge not to raise income tax, VAT or national insurance. She says she'll make necessary choices in the budget after the world has thrown more challenges our way, while Maisie Walker's been in Medway getting the reaction.
During a conference today at Downing Street, Councillor Rachel Reeves commented on Kent County Council's leadership, sparking strong reaction. Reeves said, in Kent County Council and councils they run across Britain, apparently they can't find a single penny, and instead are going to increase council tax for more than 2 million people.
It was an outright lie about KCC. I was shocked, to be honest. This is a Chancellor of the Exchequer. She has got a budget to deliver in just a few weeks' time, and instead of focusing on the job in hand, she's trying to deflect from her own shortcomings by talking about what's going on in Kent County Council. I mean, I've never heard anything like it.
The budget will be announced on the 26th of November, which will reveal tax, borrowing and spending plans for the year ahead.
Councillor Rachel Reeves has refused to rule out tax rises, as necessary choices in her upcoming budget will have to be made.
This comes after Sir Keir Starmer's promise to not raise income taxes, VAT or national insurance, leaving many residents of Kent confused and outraged.
Well, I tend not to believe what politicians say anyway. Rather than listen to their words, I look at their actions. So it doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if taxes do go up.
Nobody wants their taxes to go up, but I don't actually believe politicians do it unless they really need to.
The new government has made a complete mess of the whole thing. So it's been a pack of lies from start to finish.
Well, naturally, I'm horrified at the thought of it. But on the other hand, how are we going to pay for all the services that we receive?
A spokesperson for Medway Council said, Rachel Reeves's budget shows that Labour is making the fair and responsible choices needed to deliver strong foundations for our economy and to secure Britain's future. The councillor has been clear that this government will not be swayed by political convenience, but will do what is right. And after years of instability under the Conservatives, Labour has restored economic credibility, begun rebuilding growth, and ensured that fairness and opportunity are at the heart of every decision. Here in Medway, we'll continue to fight for a fair funding deal that delivers the investment and support our community deserves. Reeves clarified during the conference today that specific policy choices will be set out on the 26th of November when she delivers the budget to MPs. But residents of Kent don't seem to be hopeful that their taxes will be unaffected. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Rochester.
And in the last hour, I've spoken with Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce CEO Tudor Price on the Chancellor's statement. Thank you so much for joining us, Tudor. Now, first of all, a lot of business owners in high streets across Kent are already struggling with rising costs. Now, based on what we heard today, what could they expect the budget to look like and how could they prepare?
I think there's two sides to this story, really. From a sort of retail hospitality perspective, if what we suspect is true, which is the Chancellor looking to raise income tax, then of course there's an anxiety that will put constraints on consumer spend, which of course has a direct impact on retail and hospitality in particular. The other side of the story here, though, is really around the markets and investment propositions, because what we're hearing from the market is they're very concerned about the amount of debt and interest payments that the UK government is paying. So if the Chancellor can raise income tax, what that will do is start to send a message to the markets they're serious about reducing the interest debts, and therefore the cost of bonds and gilts, which sort of seems a million miles away from sort of your average person in the street. But these are the sorts of things that free up capital to be invested in big infrastructure projects, which then, of course, has a huge impact on the local economy. So I think there's two sides to this story, and I think this is where the Chancellor's trying to sort of get us ready for both.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the markets there. There was apparently some nervousness in the markets after that speech. Should people be at all worried about what that means for things like mortgage rates or the value of their savings potentially?
Probably around the value of savings. I think if the government gets this right, obviously then what they'll be able to do, in theory, is to sort of bring down inflation, which then will have a positive impact on people's mortgages and sort of, again, not so much the savings, but certainly sort of those that are carrying any debt. But what the government's trying to drive here is growth in the economy. And this is really where the business community have been holding back any of their decision-making pending the outcome of the Chancellor's statement in November, later this month, because they're really worried that there's going to be more burden placed on them. And, of course, that's going to stop them from sort of investing. But if they do start to tackle this issue around debt and interest, then actually that will unlock a lot of potential investment, not just from here in the UK, but from international sources as well. And I think we'll see a lot of projects move on. So from a business perspective, I think the Chancellor is trying to set the groundwork to say there's going to be an income tax rise and this is what it will do to the market. So there's some positives to be had, but I think in the short term, as is always the case, when people feel that they've got fewer pounds in their pocket, they're always going to be a little bit cautious about how they spend their money.
I see. Thank you so much for your time today, Tudor.
You're very welcome.
Next, a fourth arrest has been made following the death of a man in Chatham. Kent police were called to an address on Castle Road last Saturday morning following a report of a serious assault at a private address in Castle Road. Emergency services attended the scene and a man in his 40s was treated by paramedics for an injury consistent with a stab wound. The man died at the scene. The force say that the fourth person arrested is a 51-year-old man, while two other men aged 40 and 41 were arrested on Monday and remain in custody. A 45-year-old woman who was arrested in connection with the incident has been bailed pending further investigation, and officers are continuing to appeal to any witnesses. Next, a £50 million biofuel plant has been given the go-ahead on the Hoo Peninsula as part of plans to boost clean energy in Medway. Their new facility in Kingsnorth will turn waste cooking oil into low-carbon fuel, in the process creating around 200 jobs. Planning permission was granted this week, and I went down to the site to find out what the construction could mean for the area. When you're trying to make a sustainable alternative fuel to diesel, there's plenty of steps: filtering, washing, drying. And to help with the process, Medway Council have given the go-ahead for a new £50 million expansion of a biofuel plant in the Hoo Peninsula. It will add to the existing sites that turn waste cooking oil into a lower carbon alternative to diesel. The expansion also aims to help build the Lower Thames Crossing, with the biofuel being used for construction vehicles on the site.
Our evolution has evolved as the Lower Thames Crossing has received its permissions, as the government has moved forward with infrastructure projects to help promote growth, and there's no better example of a local project to us stimulating that need and growth to a local area. The LTC Lower Thames Crossing will be the greenest road ever built, and we like to sit as part of the transition fuels and the matrix of fossil-free fuels that they'll use on that site over the coming 9 years.
Now here at the site they create a truly ridiculous amount of biofuel, and in fact this tanker behind me contains 1 million litres of the substance. But many of you out there might be wondering, what is biofuel, where does it go, and how is it made?
So liquid gold is our biofuel, our Syntec ASB. It is made from used cooking oil that we react with a catalyst to form our biofuel and our byproduct that is glycerol. Per legislations, similar to EN 590 diesel, it has to meet a British standard. We have the same here, which is the BS and EN 14214 standard. Yeah, so we do a range of quality control testing on both our feedstock and our biofuel that include lab tests against the BS EN 14214 standard and operational monitoring for the operatives outside.
Syntec produces the most biofuel in the UK for the transport and logistics sectors, and the expansion, which was secured by Nexus Planning, is also said to create 200 jobs. The planning company added they worked closely with Syntec Biofuel, Medway Council and the wider technical team to ensure the scheme delivers environmental, economic and operational benefits in line with local policy and the National Planning Policy Framework. The plant produces around 1 million litres of biofuel every month, but because of the new facility, this is predicted to double by next year, coinciding with when the Lower Thames Crossing is set to start construction. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Who. Now it is time for a quick break, but coming up we'll hear about a Folkestone dog owner who's agreed to put down 9 XL bully puppies due to kennel costs. We'll listen to some residents' outcry against a multi-million-pound seaside project disrupting their neighbourhood in Greatstone. And we'll hear from Maidstone Borough Council leader Stuart Jeffrey, who's writing to the Home Secretary to pardon 7 women convicted of witchcraft. And of course, we will, as always, take a look at the weather across the county over the coming days. But we'll be right back after this very short break, and we'll have more news from around the county and right here in Kent. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Kent Tonight. Now, a woman from Folkestone who was on board a train during a mass stabbing has told how terrified passengers ran for their lives. Amira Ostalski was on the LNER train from Doncaster to London when the attack happened in Cambridgeshire last Saturday night. The University of Nottingham student told Kent Online she'd been sitting listening to music when she saw a man being stabbed 5 rows ahead of her. She recounted she didn't think she would leave the train alive and that the suspect was a mere few metres from her. 11 people received treatment in hospital following the attack, and 2 British men in their 30s were initially arrested, while police said there was nothing to suggest it was a terror incident. Next, Harrietsham Parish Council are asking the community to help save Christmas by taking down St George's flags on streetlights. It comes as a permit for festive lights issued by Kent County Council say flags must be removed before decorations are put up due to potential safety risks. The rule means Christmas lights that are supposed to be installed along the A20 in the centre of the village can't go ahead as planned. Kent County Council highways say they will only remove flags if they pose a safety risk. Parish Council Chairman Eddie Powell said he hopes that whoever installed the flags will be able to remove them to allow for the festive lights to be installed. Up next, we have this week's Business Roundup with Joel Fletcher.
Only a fortnight away until discount store Home Bargains opens in Hempstead Valley. The shop used to be home to a BHS store, but the firm collapsed almost a decade ago. Since then, the property has only seen short-term lets, including M&Co and Sainsbury's. The whole shopping centre is having a makeover with various refurbishments. Home Bargains will open at the centre on Saturday, the 15th of November. Turning our attention to Gravesend's Wimble Street, Wimble Butchers, previously JM Danslow, is shutting down due to rising costs and pressure from competing budget supermarkets. The owner, Mark Springle, born in Gravesend, said that rates have gone up, the price of meat has gone up, and minimum wage has gone up, and that he simply can't compete with the convenience of Lidl and Aldi's meat options. Springle said his average Saturday last year would see 200 customers, where now the number is more than halved. This closure sees the end of a long legacy, as the town centre shop is believed to have been a butcher's for more than 270 years. At Ashford's Eureka Park, plans for a 24-hour Burger King drive-thru are possibly underway. Plans will also see the opening hours of the dine-in be extended between 11 PM and 5 AM. If approved, these hours will rival against the likes of McDonald's, KFC and Pizza Hut. And finally, Craving House. Kent's first Italian-Peruvian restaurant opens in Ashford, with owner Diego Herrada promising the best pizza in town. Herrada says there's nothing similar to us here in Ashford, with it being a combination of a restaurant, coffee shop and bar, if the council agrees to an alcohol licence. Mr Herrada was born in Peru but moved to London in 2011 and eventually made his way to Ashford in 2018. Inspired by his Italian grandfather and his Peruvian side of the family, Herrada has made combining the two cuisines Craving House's personality.
Now don't forget, you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one about a school in Sevenoaks' new rules on phones.
A school in Sevenoaks is pressing pause on phones and play on real life. At the start of this academic year, Trinity School introduced a new rule: no smartphones allowed during the day. Every morning, students place their phones into small magnetic pouches, similar to security tags, which lock automatically. The pouches are kept by the school and can only be unlocked once the day ends.
The aim is simple: to reduce distractions and actively encourage students to engage with the present.
Assistant head teacher Mr Richardson has said the results so far have been positive.
We've definitely seen an improvement in the amount of reports to do with mobile phones. I'm a safeguarding lead here at the school, and we've seen a decline in the amount of disclosures to do with maybe online bullying or cyberbullying or group chats. We still get a few happening, maybe in the evenings, at the weekends, which have a knock-on effect and end up coming into school, and we still deal with those in the right way, but we're not dealing with any that are happening during the school day.
While some students were unsure at first, many now say they are enjoying school life more without the constant buzz of notifications.
I think at first it was a lot of adjustment because everyone was absolutely furious, but then it changed, and then now it's kind of quite unnoticeable. You just walk in, put your phone in your pouch, and at the end of the day you get it.
I'm for it. I think it's just going to keep improving. Each year it's about and present.
The initiative has also received praise from local MP Laura Trott, who visited the school and encourages others to follow in Trinity's lead. She said it was great on a recent visit to speak with head teacher Matt Pawson and pupils to hear about the positive impact this change is already having, particularly at break times where children are now chatting and playing together rather than scrolling through their screens. A huge well done to Matt and his team. By putting their phones on silent, Trinity students are turning up the volume on learning and friendships. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Sevenoaks.
Great story from Maisie there. You can find it on our website. Now it's time to take a look at the weather for the coming days. This evening we'll see cloudy skies with temperatures averaging at 14 across the county, highs of 15 there in Dover. Tomorrow morning sees partly cloudy skies again, temperatures rising up to 15 across the county except for Ashford and Tunbridge Wells. And into your afternoon, more clouds to be expected, highs of 16 across the county, lows of 14 there in Ashford. And here's your outlook for the coming days. On Thursday the county will experience highs of 16. Towards the end of the week things getting slightly cooler, highs of 15. Cloudy skies continuing until Saturday where the sun begins to peek through just in time for the weekend. Next, while the women accused in the infamous Salem witch trials in America have long since been pardoned, the convictions of 7 women for witchcraft on Maidstone's Pennenden Heath under similar laws in 1652 still officially stands. But Maidstone Borough Council have been gaining international attention in recent weeks as part of a campaign to change that. Council leader Stuart Jeffrey has written to the Home Secretary calling for a general pardon of the 7 women and joined us earlier on to tell us more. Thank you so much for joining us, Stuart. First of all, why has this action been taken by you and the council now? The women were executed back in 1652, I believe, so why now of all times?
Back in the summer, we were presented with a petition for a memorial to the women who were murdered. It's was at that point fairly unknown. The scale of the size of the trial that they went through. 7 women wrongly convicted under this arcane law and then hanged. And as part of the work that we did exploring, making sure we had a plan to provide that memorial, we thought it would be a useful addition to request their pardon. We're very aware of the Turing's Law, which was passed a few years ago, which pardoned gay men who were they shouldn't have been convicted for, and this was clearly a crime that these women were not guilty of. So asking for a pardon felt like a right thing to do, and specifically where we've used it to highlight that historical context of misogyny that was apparent then and is clearly apparent now. So we're using it as part of our highlighting of the society which needs to root out misogyny.
Absolutely. And what's been the feeling around this in the council? Is there a lot of support or is it a bit divisive? Tell us about how it's been received.
I mean, clearly there are councillors who are not keen on doing this, and that's politics. Generally speaking, there is widespread support within the council and within the public. The sort of social media posts I put out are 90% supportive. Interestingly, on social media, the majority of people who are unhappy are men, strangely enough.
And obviously you mentioned there the fact that the violence against these women is historic, but as you say, still happens today. Some might say that this is symbolic at best, and others might say it might not make much change today. What would you say to that?
Yes, it is symbolic. I mean, there is nothing else it can be. Has it resonated? Yeah. I mean, this has gone completely viral, internationally viral. So people are recognising that it is symbolic and it is the right thing to do. I was on CNN at the weekend. Tomorrow I'm on New Zealand Breakfast TV. People are really interested in this on this historical aspect of misogyny and how it relates to modern society. So I think it is making a difference. It's getting people talking about it.
See, and history is all about not repeating the mistakes of our past. What lessons do you think in modern society we can sort of take on from this pardoning of these poor women?
I mean, I think, what we learn is that there has been this historical basis for misogyny. It has come down through the years. And by recognising that, it helps us tackle it. Equality and equity for women is really, really important. And we still haven't seen that go anywhere near far enough. We've had, people like the Met Police being labelled as institutionally misogynistic quite recently. So making sure that we keep this in the forefront of our minds as we write policies, as we interact in our society, I think is really important. So keeping the focus on this helps us to change, just shift the dial slightly on our culture. So I'm pleased that if we can do everything we can at every level of society, then we should start to move forward.
I see. Thank you so much for your time today, Stuart. Now, that is all the time we have for this part, but coming up, Kent households and businesses potentially face tax hikes. This is after Rachel Reeves's Downing Street pre-budget speech. We'll also meet the Tunbridge Wells homeowner who's trapped with the retirement home she inherited. This came after months of delegation with her freeholder. We'll be right back after this very short break with all that news and more. See you in just a sec. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Finn McDermott and here are your top stories on Tuesday, the 4th of November. Broken promises. Chancellor Rachel Reeves refuses to rule out tax rises in our upcoming budget after promises they won't be increased. Building biofuel. Who Refinery talk through how they're expanding for a more sustainable Kent. And a dinosauring success. Meet the Jurassic waste collector, making fossil fuels extinct in Maidstone. But first, here's a look back at our top story this evening. Kent households and businesses could face tax hikes after Rachel Reeves delivered a pre-budget speech in Downing Street. The Chancellor refused to rule out a U-turn on Labour's general election pledge not to raise income tax, VAT or national insurance, saying she'll make necessary choices in the budget after the world has thrown more challenges our way, while Maisie Walker's been in Medway getting the reaction.
During a conference today at Downing Street, Councillor Rachel Reeves commented on Kent County Council's leadership, sparking strong reaction. Reeves said, in Kent County Council and councils they run across Britain, apparently they can't find a single penny, and instead are going to increase council tax for more than 2 million people.
It was an outright lie about KCC. I was shocked, to be honest. This is a Chancellor of the Exchequer. She has got a budget to deliver in just a few weeks' time, and instead of focusing on the job in hand, she's trying to deflect from her own shortcomings by talking about what's going on in Kent County Council. I mean, I've never heard anything like it.
The budget will be announced on the 26th of November, which will reveal tax, borrowing and spending plans for the year ahead.
Councillor Rachel Reeves has refused to rule out tax rises, as necessary choices in her upcoming budget will have to be made.
This comes after Sir Keir Starmer's promise to not raise income taxes, VAT or national insurance, leaving many residents of Kent confused and outraged.
Well, I tend not to believe what politicians say anyway. Rather than listen to their words, I look at their actions. So it doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if taxes do go up.
Nobody wants their taxes to go up, but I don't actually believe politicians do it unless they really need to.
The new government has made a complete mess of the whole thing. So it's been a pack of lies from start to finish.
Well, naturally, I'm horrified at the thought of it, but on the other hand, how are we going to pay for all the services that we receive?
A spokesperson for Medway Council said, Rachel Reeves's budget shows that Labour is making the fair and responsible choices needed to deliver strong foundations for our economy and to secure Britain's future. The councillor has been clear that this government will not be swayed by political convenience, but will do what is right. And after years of instability under the Conservatives, Labour has restored economic credibility, begun rebuilding growth, and ensured that fairness and opportunity are at the heart of every decision. Here in Medway, we'll continue to fight for a fair funding deal that delivers the investment and support our community deserves. Reeves clarified during the conference today that specific policy choices will be set out on the 26th of November when she delivers the budget to MPs. But residents of Kent don't seem to be hopeful that their taxes will be unaffected. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Rochester.
And I caught up with the Kent Messenger's business editor, Chris Britcher, earlier on to find out a bit more about the Chancellor's announcement. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Chris. And first of all, the Chancellor's speech today hinted tax rises might still be on the table. If that does happen, what do you think it could mean for residents and businesses here in the county?
Well, I don't think it's going to be particularly welcomed by anyone, to be perfectly honest. We've been under the impression that we weren't going to have any tax rises. I mean, there's the three main ones. There's income tax, there's national insurance and there's VAT. They are enormous revenue generators for the Treasury. Now, obviously, the Labour manifesto said they weren't going to touch those. If they go up, then we will all be paying a price. Obviously, income tax means our wages will be eroded a little bit every month. VAT means we'll be paying more for our goods, and that will be a pain also for businesses because they'll obviously have to increase their costs. And national insurance, well, we saw the pushback last year when the Chancellor suggested, or Chancellor imposed an increase in national insurance contributions on businesses. So would let us hope that this isn't going to be the path we're going down, but I think it's looking increasingly likely that it is.
I see. And I think on the minds of many, what do you think this means politically, considering this might be breaking, or would be breaking, one of Labour's election manifesto pledges?
I do think this is going to be manna from heaven for her opponents, if indeed she goes through with this. You know, the manifesto is your pledge to the voter. That is what people lend their vote to you based upon that manifesto. Growth is barely there. She's got to do something, and she's got to raise some revenues. But so soon into her government's reign in Westminster to be upping these taxes potentially, I think would be extremely damaging. And I suspect all you will hear in the run up to the next election from her opponents will be how Labour are not to be trusted with any of their promises.
I see. And we know local councils here in Kent are really quite stretched. If government funding doesn't increase, could that mean more cuts to local services or even higher council tax?
I mean, we've seen council tax going up by the maximum allowed every year. I can't imagine for one moment that isn't going to continue. And obviously that then has an impact on the local services which that council tax goes towards. It's also further complicated by this sort of devolution of the local authorities, which will obviously see the end of the likes of KCC and Medway Council and all our local existing borough and district councils. So it remains to be seen quite how that's all going to shake up and how the money will fall. I think it's an uncertain time, certainly at the moment. And I think, you know, it's no secret that there is very little money to go around, and any additional monies and revenues raised are going towards just vital services anyway. I think it's going to be a tricky and challenging time for our local services, as it has been for several years now.
A woman in Tunbridge Wells says she's losing hundreds every month as she fights to sell a retirement home she inherited. After her mother's death, Karen Inglis was told she could no longer lease the property and has spent months seeking a buyer, so far without success. Freeholder Sanctuary Housing say the sales process is complex and insists it's working with her. After their refusal to buy the property off of her, she turned to We Buy Any House for a quick sale. She accepted their offer of £20,000 7 months ago, but is still currently waiting on the housing to decide whether she can sell to them.
So when I went to them last summer and asked for them to do that, they just then went, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that because you should have never been renting the property out. And I said, well, but I've always rented it out because I couldn't do anything with it when I inherited it. My friend helped me to word a letter, which I then pushed back and sent to them. And in response to that, they then billed me for £3,500 solicitors fees, which I then was like, actually, I've had like 2 letters here, I think. And I calculated it and kind of went back and just said, so that means your solicitor's charging, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 280 quid an hour. And then they came back and went, oh, no, typo, sorry, £350.
Next, Eagle Heights Wildlife Foundation in Innsford is closed to the public after a Newington bird flu outbreak. Eagles Heights Director Samantha Leonard says the closure is a preventative move and assures that all the birds are at the site and currently healthy. The move has been made as if even one bird were to contract the virus, government policy could require that every bird on site be euthanised. Even after the risk lowers, the virus tends to linger on the soil and even on your clothes, so the decision seemed necessary. The non-profit fears for the foundation's future due to losing its essential visitor income. Now, after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's titles and princehood were stripped, there have been calls to rename roads named after him across the UK, including one in Broadstairs. Prince Andrew Road has divided opinion among residents, and Kristen Hawthorne was down at the road to find out more.
Across the UK, there are roads named after Prince Andrew. But due to recently having his title stripped due to controversies, do people here in Kent think the name should be changed?
I do, yes. I'm moving back in. I've been away for a year. So today I've been phoning gas people, electricity, water, and of course they ask your address, and I have been a bit embarrassed.
I can still leave the name, the street name, in his name, because the controversy has happened. It has happened, but for me, for the fact they are doing something about it, maybe giving him a query or other things. The name of the street can still remain. For me, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah, changing the name now will bring a sort of confusion to some people.
Do you think the Prince Andrew Road street name should be changed?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Well, because when I went to buy something, even yesterday, and you have to give your address, and the man who was selling it to me said, well, that's not a very nice address to have, is it? Why can't they change it to just not Prince, just Andrew?
I spoke with many other residents about the street name who did not want to appear on camera. Some said it was just a street name and changing it could be confusing, especially for some older residents, while many others said they would like it changed as the sign itself often sees graffiti and vandalism. A spokesperson for the Thanet District Council said that street names are usually decided by developers and go through a street naming process. Any change to a street name must be agreed by 100% of that street's residents, as changes can incur costs to individuals. In the event of an application to change the name of Prince Andrew Road in Broadstairs, the request would most likely be made via the Parish Council to the Thanet District Council Street Naming and Numbering Department. To date, the Council has not received an application to do so. While opinions remain divided on whether or not to change it, the Prince Andrew Road street name will stay. Kristen Hawthorne for KMTV in Broadstairs.
That's all we have time for. See you after this short break. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. To sport now, and Gills players and fans will be delighted to hear that manager Gareth Ainsworth has returned to oversee training. He's been absent from the club for a month after heart surgery in early October. And while he's been off the team, the team has been managed by his long-term assistant Richard Dobson, with Ainsworth's last game being a 1-0 home loss to Harrogate Town, which brought to an end the club's record-breaking 21-game unbeaten run. He took to the Gills social media to announce his return.
Hey everyone, feels good to be back at the training ground while the boys are training. Let's see how the week goes, but so far so good. Up the Gills.
Great to see him back feeling healthy. Now, Kings Hill racer Thomas Merritt has finished the season as vice-champion in the BRSCC Fiesta Junior Championship at Brands Hatch. Across the campaign, the teenager secured 4 wins, 10 podium places and 5 fastest laps. In tricky wet conditions at the final round, a switch to wet tyres and steady driving kept him in the top positions. Merritt says he's over the moon to go out on a high in his last year in the junior ranks. And finally, in sport, to the track, where Canterbury's Charlotte Henrik has been reflecting on her breakout season, which has seen her become one of the new major names in British athletics. The former Simon Langton Girls Grammar School pupil capped the year in August in Finland by winning the Under-20 European gold in the 400 metres. Despite injuries earlier this year that did threaten her progress, she set personal bests and impressed on the national stage. In the international stage, I should say. Henrik says it's a dream come true, and she's already looking ahead to the next step in her career. Now, if you were in Maidstone today, you might have caught a glimpse of prehistory in the making. The Borough Council have rolled out Binosaurus Rex, the only electric bin lorry in the county. The council say it will ensure the area's net zero 2030 plans are achieved, but has come with a price tag of £170,000. Local Democracy reporter Ollie Leader swapped Jurassic Park for Moat Park to find out, is this a roaring success or a dino-sized bite out of taxpayers' wallets?
Meet the Binosaurus Rex, the carbon-friendly apex predator of Maidstone's waste collection, silently moving through the undergrowth of Moat Park.
You know, we want the children to think about recycling, thinking about litter. They see this driving along, they're excited, and if we can get them excited about recycling, excited about using litter bins, then we're doing our job, because we're keeping the waste from being sent for disposal, we're keeping stuff from being dropped on the floor. You know, these parks are beautiful, we don't want litter.
The Binosaurus Rex is an expensive beast. It cost the council around £170,000. But because it's a herbivore, because it doesn't guzzle those fossil fuels every other bin lorry does here in Kent, it also makes it cost effective and potentially the future for waste collection here in Maidstone.
Now, I'm sure that people want to reduce their council tax, so this is more expensive to buy. But over the lifetime of a refuge vehicle, it can be 20 years, we will definitely save money. I mean, 300 litres of diesel a day we're not using. That's a lot of diesel.
But what difference does any of this make?
You go faster than that.
Behind the wheel? Can you hear that? There's absolutely no roar on the Binosaurus Rex as it's trundling along here in Moat Park. That's because it's all electric, so it won't be keeping you up in the morning as it's collecting your street waste.
That's right, yeah, they'll be amazed, because by the time they keep the collection, we'll be in and out without them noticing we're there.
But do passers-by believe the new addition is a dino-soaring success?
Fantastic.
Good fun.
Brightens up, you know, your day when you see something like that.
Let's hope people are attracted by it and take notice of it.
I like the design, but I'm anti-electric.
Maidstone Borough Council's 2030 net zero target means many of the existing diesel lorries are heading for extinction. Love it or hate it, the Binosaurus is here to stay. Ollie Leader in Moat Park.
Now, don't forget, you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website at kmtv.co.uk. And they're not all about dinosaur-themed bin lorries, I'm afraid to say. This one is about trains to Europe being one step closer to returning to Kent after the rail regulator gave Virgin Trains permission to use a key international depot in London. Let's have a look.
I have got something for you. Let's see what happens. Ta-da! That's better. There's a Virgin bag. And enjoy our new train service in a couple of years.
It's Eurostar dominance no more, as Virgin Trains have received the green light to operate international rail services using the Channel Tunnel, which could put direct routes to Europe from Kent back on the map. The UK's rail regulator, the Office of Rail and Road, has announced the Branston-owned company will have access to Temple Mill International Depot, the same one used by Eurostar. The ORR have explained this could unlock 400 new jobs and 700 million in investment, as well as potential cheaper prices for customers, encouraged by the new competition. Branston's plan is to launch these new services in 2030, putting an end to Eurostar having monopolised the Channel Tunnel since 1994. But the real question is, will these new trains stop at international stations in Kent, where the Eurostar has stopped visiting? Councillors remain optimistic.
So the first thing to say is that this is really, really positive, good news. It's really great to have some for a change, that we're getting somewhere. We've taken a step forward on our journey back towards international rail travel from Ashford, and all in all, I'm optimistic that this is the right thing to do.
I'm delighted that Virgin has won this bid, because on the day at this big event that we had at the end of September, I had a lovely chat with one of the directors from Virgin who'd come down especially for the event, and he assured me that if they were successful, they would stop in Kent. So the next step really is to persuade the government to reopen these stations, because of course as soon as the stations are officially reopened and brought back up to standard, we can get those services stopping as soon as Virgin start running their trains.
The Virgin Group explained that should the former stations be able to accommodate international services once again, the new trains will stop in Kent. Those in Ashford seem excited by the possibility.
Well, I think it's such a shame that it's there and it's not being used enough. We spent all this money getting it there for the local people to use, to go further afield, and it's just not being used enough. It's such a shame.
I think it'll bring a lot of business to the town as well, and I think it's a very good idea.
Why not? I mean, it's there, it needs to be used for something. It's just a waste of money if it sits there doing nothing.
Eurostar blames COVID-related debt for pulling the plug on its Kent services. But Virgin Trains also faces financial barriers to be able to bring these stations back to life, without updating infrastructure in Ebbsfleet and Ashford stations to accommodate new international services. These trains will be stopped at a signal, once again awaiting green light. Megan Shaw for KMTV in Ashford.
Now it's time to take a look at the weather for the coming days. This evening we'll see cloudy skies, temperatures averaging at 14 across the county, highs of 15 in Dover. Tomorrow morning sees partly cloudy skies again, with temperatures rising up to 15 across the county, with the exception of Ashford and Tunbridge Wells staying at 14 there. And in the afternoon, more clouds to be expected, highs of 16 across the county, lows of 14 in Ashford. And here's your outlook for the coming days. Thursday, the county will experience highs of 16. Towards the end of the week, things are getting slightly cooler, highs of 15. Cloudy skies continuing until Saturday, when the sun begins to peek through in time for the weekend. Now premiering on KMTV after Kent Tonight is a brand new show all about the news in Kent, made for primary school children. News Nuggets tackles stories about local politics and democracy and allows our younger generation to explore the importance of our local area. From elections to food waste to who runs our sports clubs, each episode takes a deep dive into anything and everything about how our county runs. Here's a sneak peek of episode 1 coming on straight after the break.
3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Abby and welcome to News Nuggets. This week we'll be learning about your local government, voting and democracy.
So what are the topics that are most important to you? Do you think you're doing a good job at what you're doing?
Well, that's a great question.
Your local council is in charge of really important services like social care, schools, housing. Democracy means that we get a say on who leads our country. Every 5 years, people in the UK go to their local ballot station and vote for a Member of Parliament. What do you think both of you have learnt today?
Some of my parents' friends and stuff, they sometimes think that politics are just fighting and stuff and kind of being mean. But now that I've talked to all you guys, I understand that it's not just that. Politics isn't just about being in charge, it's about speaking up for what you think is right. So, Vince, where are we going now?
One of the projects we're going to look at today is the paddock, which is right in the heart of Chatham Town Centre.
How much is all this building going to cost?
So this is costing several hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's a lot of money.
You know, Freya, I think there should be a bench right here. Yeah, there should, with our names on it.
Well, joining us in the studio today is Tris Osborne. He's the MP or Member of Parliament for Chatham and Aylesford.
So I feel like parks are a really good way to do that, but there aren't many around our area. We have doctors in our area, and I think that we should have quicker appointments, and I know that that's very hard to control.
Our local council is in charge of our roads, bins and schools. True or false?
True.
True.
There we go, it's true, well done. Full house. All right.